Oh, maybe it is just straight. Hi, I'm Paul Brodie. We're in my shop. Mitch behind the camera. And it's back to our gravel bike. So what we did last time, what I did, is I made a fork. And so what we need to do now is, because we have a fork, and now we need a frame, and I have some ideas what I want to do. So we're going to go over to the table, and I'm going to show you briefly. I'm going to make the front part of the drawing. It's called the front a triangle. So I'll show you how that works briefly. This is other video we made where I do the whole drawing. If you want a more detailed look at what goes on, that's probably the one to look at. But this is going to give you an overview, okay? Thanks for stopping by. Here's my fork drawing that I was going to show you previously, but it wasn't handy. So we're going to do the frame drawing now. So when you do a frame drawing, the first thing you want is the axle line. So we're going to draw a line across here. I know the size of the tire, 344 mil. It's a 650B tire. Do that, and then we draw a horizontal axle line. Then we have the intersection. That is the axle, okay? I'd say this is an easy day at the office. Right now, I don't even have to get my hands dirty. On the vertical axle line, it has to be more than what the trail is. That's a measurement down here. So I'm going to go for 110 millimeters. I'm never going to have that much trail on this bike. So 110. What we have here now is these are the two axle lines. Horizontal axle line and the vertical axle line. And in the middle of that, that's going to be the axle. So off of this, we take our head tube angle now. So I'm going to grab my large protractor. So I line it up on the 3 points. So my head angle, I want it to be 70.5. I think a gravel bike is a copy, in a way, of a 1980s mountain bike. So back in the 80s, when we were building mountain bikes, me and the guys, this is the head angle we used for years, and it's a very good head tube angle, 70.5. And if you put some rake on there, like 45 millimeters, 1 3/4, it's a nice feel when the bike is going through corners and steering. If you're doing a frame drawing, it's good to mark in the angle, because then you can recall what you've got. (70.5 degrees). After that, we have the offset of the fork. So we're going to mark that in, and that's 45 millimeters, 1 3/4. There's the 45, and we'll come down here. That's where the head tube sits. The head tube sits on this line, not on that line. This is the offset. So here is the trail of the bike, and 73 millimeters of trail. So I like to write that in, 73 millimeters. That's going to handle quite nicely. It's kind of average. It's not really low. It's not really long. It's going to be responsive. Okay, the next thing we do is to mark what's known as the fork crown height. If I put my fork on here, on my drawing, that's basically where the crown race is, right there. So if I draw a line across there, and then if I measure from the axle up to the crown race, that's a very important measurement. And I'm going to say it's 390. It's like 389 and a bit. So this is how I write it in. Axle to crown, 390 millimeters. So I'm taking this measurement and I'm going over here now. So this is what you do. You take right from the axle, and at 390, it's the point of intersection. I'll draw what I think is a right angle, like that. That is the crown race. That's where the bearing goes, right in here. And the bearing has a thickness, and it's about 12 millimeters. If you use 12 millimeters, that's good. So there we go. There's 10, there's 12. So right there, if I try and make it a right angle like that, that is the bottom of the head tube. So I do have a head tube. I have some tubes. Let's grab the head tube. We'll actually make a rectangle that is the shape of the head tube. Here's all the tubes for my gravel bike. I was at a swap meet and I bought a nice head tube off of Schwinn, a head tube badge, sorry. And so I have a Schwinn, but it's got a head tube badge. So look, this fits perfectly on my head tube. So I might be building a Schwinn. What do you think of that? Let us know in the comments below. Here's my head tube. I have to mark it in here. So an easy way to do it, I measure it. It's 37 millimeters. Half of that is 18 and a half. There's my 18 and a half. So if I do this, can you see what I'm doing? I'm halfway and I'm doing the head tube. I need to, I need to extend this. And the head tube is this long. We're just going by eyeball. There it is. A drawing doesn't have to take you all day long. Okay, there's the head tube. That's what that's showing. So the next thing to do, I'm going to come around here. We're going to make a line. That's going to be the height of the bottom bracket. The bottom bracket's going to be somewhere here. So let's draw a line. I think I'll just leave this one in pencil. I'll try and make it, what did I say, 11 5/8? Yeah, there we go. That's the line of the bottom bracket. That's the height of the bottom bracket. So next we have to figure out what's known as the front center. Front center is axle to the bottom bracket. That's that measurement right there. And on the bikes that we used to make, I'm going by memory, it was a little over 2 feet. Maybe a 26 and a half, I seem to remember. But we're going to change that around because bikes have changed. The handlebar stems have become shorter. And that means that the front center has become longer. So there we go. It's 26 and a half. So that's where the bottom bracket would have been on one of our bikes back in the 80s, early 90s, something like that. So I'm going to make it longer because the stem is going to be short. I've got the stem. It's just a little shorty, whatever it is. So why don't I add on, I'm making this up as I go, and we'll find out what it rides like. I'm going to add on 1.25 inches. If the bars are a little closer, that's okay. It's not like I'm getting younger. So, okay. 1.5 inch bottom bracket. I'm running a wide one this time. I'm going 83 millimeters. I'm going to fillet braze the frame, so the intersection of the tube, that's where the down tube is going to intersect because I need room for the fillet in here, okay? So I don't want it up high, don't want it too low. That's about the right height. I think it's about 12 millimeters if I remember. Okay, I'm not using a felt pen right now because I need to see what it looks like. Seat tube angle, I like 74. It used to be that was a steep seat tube, but now with the downhill bikes and full suspension, they're going 77, 78, really, really steep. I never thought that would have worked, but apparently it works. So, okay, so put this on here like that, and we go for 74. That's my seat tube angle. So I'm going from the center of the BB. I have to set my height. I think I got long legs. I'm going to go for a 20.5 seat tube. And we'll find some tubes, we'll see how it all fits. I got a seat tube. It's a Reynolds seat tube. I think the 30.9, whatever is the standard, one of the standards. So I have to cut this off shorter. So the miter is going to go, that's going to be the, if I roll it, that is the miter. So what I do, because you have to, okay, when you take a hole saw, you can't take a cut like that. This has to be shorter. So what I used to do is this. So I got two lines. This is the hacksaw line. This is the miter line. That means the miter is coming up like that. 1.5" hole saw. That's what fits the bottom bracket shell. So I found these tubes upstairs, and it's a Prestige tube. Can you see that? Prestige, nice tube, probably 858. And, oh, look at that. Oh, it'd be nice to use this tube. So, can you see how it's just, I shouldn't have put that. I should have made the bottom bracket out of, not felt pen, pencil. Because this needs to be, that needs to be up there like that. I can miter that. Well, maybe if I miter it, then I know, well, that's a lot shorter. So that means that this gets moved up. I have to think for a moment, because if I change my frame design, then I can use this tube. If I really want the bottom bracket to be right back here, which is what I thought I wanted, this tube is too short. You don't extend tubes. Well, you can, but no, you don't extend tubes. So I got to look for another tube, see what I got. See if I can make this work. Be right back. What you're seeing here is my inventory of tubing. I got boxes of True Temper, there's other Tangay. So it's kind of neat to have all this. Sometimes I can find what I want, sometimes I can't. So both the same length. Oh, it's got a BB. Same size though. I got some nice tubes here. These were top tubes on, I think, Rocky Mountain altitudes. It's a Tangay tube. And look, the same. See, everything has changed now because bikes got longer. And so all the old tubing, it really is kind of obsolete, because if you can't make it work. Oh, that's a really heavy tube. It is long. That's heavy. Oh, look at that. It's a True Temper tube. It's going to be, looks like 1 3/8". It's long enough. It's about the same weight. But that will work. That's long enough. So says it's got an 8mm wall. Let's go downstairs and let's have a look at this tube and see what it actually is doing inside, internal butting, that kind of thing. So we're going to use the butt detector, and we're going to figure out how long the butts are and the wall thickness at the ends. I can actually measure that. I got my butt detector here. Do you see how this works? There's a dial indicator here. There's a ball bearing there. And when I slide, can you see how this works? Because once I put it in the vise, you're not going to see this. You see that? And so as the wall thickness changes, it's noted up here. So I put it into the vise. So we'll set that at about 0. Get my felt pen ready. So watch what happens. Oh, maybe it is just straight. Sorry, maybe it's just straight gauge. I assumed it had a butt. Maybe not. Do I still want to use it even though it doesn't have a butt? Don't know if I got a lot of choice. No, I think it's just straight gauge tubing, 0.8. Okay, it'll work fine. This is a pretty small tube for this. See, in between the top tube and the down tube, you have a relationship of sorts, because you're looking at the top tube and the down tube, and yes, this is a little bit smaller, but it's sort of in proportion, if I could say that. Then when you change the tube, it's a whole different proportion now. This is starting to look smaller. I do have an 1 3/16 top tube I could use. That would work. Okay, let's go oversized then. It's going to weigh a bit more, but whatever. So I'm going to take these tubes upstairs. I'm going to grab the 1 3/16 and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, I'm using the felt pen because we have made a decision on our choice of tubes. I've got the 1 3/16 for the top tube. It's a Tanguay tube, 858. So I'm doing the same thing again. I'm taking half of the OD of the tube, and then I just do this, move my stuff. And then we have to think about where's the top tube going to go? How much extension are we going to have? These are the things you have to figure out. I've had a little experience and I'm just winging it here. It feels good. So what I'd like to do here is to check for the butt. So I'll get the butt detector back, because on this tube here, it's a Reynolds seat tube. You can see the Reynolds logo there. And it's got an external butt. How these seat tubes get made, it's a very special tube. It's got an external butt to here. Then this is about 6 millimeters. This is about 1.1, I think. And then there's an internal butt here. So external butt, internal butt, specialty bicycle tube. So I think from these marks here that it looks like the butt goes to about here. This needs to be faced off because at the factory it's not. It's at an angle. It's at a slight angle. So let's see where the butt ends, because where the butt ends, it dictates how low the top tube can go. You can put it up higher, but if that's where the butt ends, you can't go lower. So we'll check it out. So I set it to 0, and we come in up. So okay, right. See where it drops off right there. So that point right there, that's the end of the butt. That's where the butt ends. Here, that's probably something else. So what that means is the lowest that this tube can go, the lowest that the top tube can go is about like that, because you have to allow for the fillet brazing. So this is the lowest part. So that's the top tube. The top tube can only go to there. So if we check this out, so it's the same kind of thing here. You know how we got the space here? We have to allow for the fillet brazing. So this is going to go like that here, and then we can go wherever we like up into here. So I think I'm looking at the space here, how much is exposed above the top tube, and I could go a little lower there, but I think we'll settle it right. I like it right there. So it's ending up a little bit higher than what it could be. I've got a frame jig. We can set up the frame jig and start to miter some tubes. This is the bottom bracket. It's a little wider than normal, but I got a crank set up that I like. I'm going to fillet braze. There's a rule of thumb that when you fillet braze, you need at least 1/8 of an inch. Do you see how these tubes are very close to being the same size? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ovalize this. We're going to go to the arbor press, ovalize this, hold it in the mill, and miter it. So we want to take this in, a 1/4 inch or so. That'll be good. And then it's also easier for the mitering of the seat tube, because now this is compressed a little bit. Oh, that's squished. Something happened there. I felt that. So there we go. We have an ovalization. We're going to take it to the mill, use a hole saw. Okay, I have a front center. This is how you measure front center. You're going from one line to the other line, the axle line to the height of the bottom bracket, or the drop. This is the drop. So, axle to the bottom bracket is 70.7. So this is how I do my shorthand. Front center, 70.7 millimeters. So let's set up the jig. Here's the scale. Can you see there's a 70, 72? So we're going to go about to where my nail is. That's going to be pretty darn close. So this just slides on this rail here and in between these two pieces. So 70.7 right there. And then at the same time, while this is loose, we want to set our head tube angle. Can you see the scale there? And I've made some mistakes in the past where I read the lines wrong, and that was a big mistake. Haven't done that for a while. So there we go, 70.5. So I'm going from the axle up to the head tube. That's the crown race. Don't want to go to the crown race because the jig is holding up the head tube. So that's where we want to go. And it looks like it's 40.3. So I'm kind of estimating here. I've got a little mark, and I put it to the middle of the mark. So I'm a little high. There's my 40.3. Maybe it comes down a little bit. .3. So I've got a cone. Okay, so that's in. There's the bottom bracket. I'll drill a hole later for the down tube. And This is what it's looking like so far. So I need to mark this tube, we need to cut it, we need to miter it. So let's go look for angles and stuff on the drawing. When we're looking for the miter angle, we want to come off of the 90, because on the mill, when the hole saw is straight up and down, that's at 0. So we need to know the angle from here to here. So if I set up the protractor, it's 21 degrees. Can you see that? Got this lined up with the head tube. There's 10 and 20. And 21, maybe 21 and a half, but so what I do is I do this, I do M and 21. That lets me know that the miter angle is at this number. And I'll have a number for here, here. Actually, let's do that all right now then, because then I don't have to do it later. Looks like 7. M is 7. Looks like it's about 3 degrees, so let's see if I can write upside down. So I think what we'll do now is, because we've got the hole saw all set up in the mill, is we'll miter the seat tube now. Okay, so that's what it looks like when it's all, this needs to line up a little, there we go. Looks good. So, a little bit of masking tape. So let's miter this end now. So that's how that goes, like that. So I'm holding the tube where it goes, and then I see how that's right in the corner. So that's my miter. That's where I'm going to miter. And then I need a hacksaw line. There's my miter line. And if I go right there, HS, hacksaw. Okay, so held on with tape. We're back in the press. So we're going to ovalize it this way. So that has to be up. Whoa. So what's happening here now is the tube is long enough that it hits the underneath of the hole saw. So I need to cut off the tube with snips. It's 0.8 millimeters, so pretty light. Okay, so we've got the down tube mitered. We're going to put it on. We're going to check and see what the fit looks like. Oh, a little bit. Looks like I cut off a little bit too much. So what we do here is we make an adjustment. So what we're going to do is to move the front center a little bit so that it bops this up. So it's not much of an adjustment. When I ride the bike, I probably won't even know that I've made that adjustment. So let's see what happens here. So we're coming back. And we're also looking for the 70.5. So there's the 70.5. And we've gone from 70.7 to 70.4. So we'll see you next week, because this is as far as we're going today. Thank you for watching. Mitch and I like coffees. Please subscribe. It all helps the channel very, very much. Take care. See you next week.